Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 927A, and today's date is March 24th, 2016, and the title of the episode is The U.S. Government Central Bankers' Economic Recovery Illusion is Coming to an End. Let's get right into the economic collapse financial news. Now, we have been following economic indicators for quite a while, and we have been seeing the slow destruction of the economy, not just here in the United States, but in Canada, Australia, Europe, UK. And since 2008, I know the governments, the central banks, they're trying to convince us that everything has gotten a lot better. But under the covers, behind the scenes, behind all the propaganda of the economy's improving, is what is really lurking in the darkness, and that is all the indicators pointing to a complete collapse of the system. At this point, we realize that they've created this illusion out of bubbles, out of creating currency out of thin air by propping up banks, where banks then propped up the stock market, where the Fed stepped in and bought up all that toxic real estate, took it off the bank's books, where they manipulated numbers for unemployment, GDP. Unemployment, they don't count those people who've fallen off. If you have a part-time job, you're counted as a full-time job. If you have two part-time jobs, you're counted as two full-time jobs. And if you're laid off from the part-time job and then you're not working the 25 or 30 hours, you're not counted as a layoff. Now, each state is different, but this is the way the system works. GDP. They went back to 1929. They included research and development and other things into GDP and then recalculated it moving up to the present day. They added Obamacare into this. And we know they keep revising the numbers back and forth to create the illusion of this economic recovery. Well, it doesn't exist. And I know there's people out there who believe that we're in one, but we're not. There are too many indicators at this point pointing to the system collapsing inward. It's an implosion. And it's not just here in the United States. We're seeing it in Britain, where they're showing that their retail sales, they have fallen more than expected in February. And there are signs that the economy in Britain has slowed in early 2016. And the government's official budget forecasters said, you know what? It doesn't look good this entire year. It's going to be weak for the rest of this year. We see France is out there saying, okay, our unemployment has gone up again by 1.1% in the month of February, pushing jobless numbers to a record 3.591 million people. I remember back in August of 2013, to be very specific, when President Hollande came out, and this was during the time where we were having that false flag, the sarin gas false flag in Syria, where Obama was out there also saying that real estate is improving. He was in Phoenix. President Hollande said, listen, it looks like the French economy is taking off. It's going to be much, much better now. We're going to reduce unemployment. And when we go from that period to this period, we see that nothing has changed at all. Actually, it has changed. It's gotten a lot worse. Everything they told us is not working. Now, in certain parts of Canada, we see the real estate bubble is deflating. It's going to pop. And what's very interesting, in Vancouver, prices have surged by 26% in February. And we're seeing this gigantic real estate bubble in Vancouver blowing up like crazy. And the reason for this is that the Chinese are taking their funds, their currency, and they're stuffing it into real estate in Vancouver. The Chinese right now, they have spent $12.7 billion in Greater Vancouver area, which accounts for 33% of total sales in that area. So it's not the Canadian people that are going out and saying, hey, I'm going to purchase this. No, it's foreign investors coming into the country doing this. We're seeing this just not in Canada. We've seen this in the United States. And this has pumped up the market. We've seen hedge funds, investment companies doing the same thing. The everyday person in Canada, the United States, they're sitting on the sidelines right now. Because guess what? They don't have the funds to purchase real estate. Here in the United States, we're seeing very odd things. The initial jobless claims, they're hovering at 43-year lows. But what's very interesting about this is that this is showing that no one's applying for any type of unemployment insurance whatsoever. But we see the ISM Composite Employment Index doing the opposite. We see manufacturing doing the opposite. We see more layoffs coming from these sectors, and at the same time, initial jobless claims are falling. We see corporations continually laying off people, but initial jobless claims are falling. We see the retail sector. They're laying off people, closing stores, but the initial jobless claims is at 43-year lows. So again, someone is lying, and we know who it is. We know it's the government. We know it's the central bank. Now, Markit is out there. They're warning the U.S. economy is going through its worst growth spell for 3.5 years. The worst may come, and this is a great concern, saying we are near stalling speed of new business growth. The average reading for the first 3 months of 2016, 51.3, revealed the slowest quarterly pace of expansion since the third quarter of 2012. And not just that, we see durable goods, if we exclude transports, they have dropped by 0.5%. And we're talking about washers, dryers, those type of items. And this streak has lasted for 13 months. This is the longest streak in history of the series with no recession. Well, remember, for us to be in a recession, the government, the Fed, they have to admit to it. Do you really think at this point they're going to admit that we're in a recession? Absolutely not. Remember, everyone, look at the stock market. Look at the stock market. Look at the stock market. That's what they want everyone doing. Don't look at what's really going on here. Don't look at the real economic indicators. Capital good orders were drastically revised lower, but still fell more than expected by negative 1.8% month on month. And what we're seeing right now is we have never seen anything like this outside of a recession. Every time this occurred in durable good orders, we've had a major recession. And we've seen this back in 2007, 2008, going into the recession. We saw this in 2000, 2001, going into the recession. We saw this back in the 90s, 91, 92, going into the recession. Back in the 80s, going into the recession. And we can go all the way back. We've seen this every single time. But no one's admitting to a recession because they're keeping the illusion alive. But guess what? The illusion's coming to an end. They can't keep this up because even the financial pundits on the corporate media are starting to scratch their heads saying, all right, something's wrong here. Things aren't making sense. I mean, yeah, we can keep, spewing this junk that the government continually tells us to spew out there, but it's not even making sense anymore. The market's up for what reason again? Because we know revenue's down. We know there's buybacks. We know companies like IBM, Caterpillar, they don't have revenue coming in from sales the way they used to. That has all declined. And everyone's scratching their head. The Atlanta Fed right now is saying that, okay, GDP right now is forecasted about 1.2%. Remember when they told us that 2015, then 2016, we're going to see GDP growth at 2.5%, 3.5%. Oh yeah, it looks fantastic. We're just going to improve. Well, now they're saying 2017 is going to be the best year ever. Well, we know it's not. They're lying. Because when we look at all these numbers and we look at everything that's going on here, we see that the real economic indicators are telling us something completely different than what the corporate media, what the government, what the Fed is telling us. It's all fake. Now, Harry Dent is out there, and he's saying with stock market valuations in the U.S., and particularly looking stretched, and U.S. stocks looking very overvalued, there is a real risk of a major correction in the stock market. Just like we had back in 2000, 2008. And yes, this market is manipulated. And we know at some point, do we know the exact date? No. But we know at some point that this entire thing will come crumbling down. It will crash. And it's going to be a lot worse than 2008. Now, everyone before 2008, before the market came down, they were telling us that everything is fine. That, no, yes, the market might dip a little bit, but don't worry about it. Everything is contained. Everything is accounted for. There's no recession we're forecasting or anything like that. And of course, everyone was out there saying, yeah, you're right. The economy looks still strong and everything is fine. And of course, there were some people like Peter Schiff and others out there saying, no, it looks pretty bad. We're looking at the real economic indicators and everything's pointing to a major correction, a recession, a depression. Well, everyone is out there again, screaming. We're headed down the same exact path. And at this point in time, we can see as the market fluctuates at the top here, to get all the smart money out, they're getting ready to let this completely go. Or maybe they're going to be losing control. And this is why they're trying so hard to push an event to cover up this entire thing. And this is why, at this time, if you haven't started, I beg you, just get some food, some water, supplies that you need. Because my personal opinion from looking at everything and going back in time and looking at all the reports and how everything has degraded to this point, I'm starting to see a lot of similarities of 2008. And if everything that I'm looking at is correct, I don't know how much time we have left here. Yes, can they pump it up once again? Can they pretend that the market's doing well? But while they do this and while they keep the market up, there's going to be more companies laying off, more retail stores shutting down, and more people losing their jobs. And as this continues, and it has a compound effect, the entire illusion will unravel and it will fall apart. And they know this. And it seems like we are so close there to that point that I have a pit in my stomach. Because I'm looking at all this and I'm seeing it. I'm saying there's nothing else they can do at this point except cover it up, of course. Now, I'm not predicting anything. I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow. But if you've been following what has been going on here and looking at every single thing, we see that 99.9% of each one of these sectors is trending down. It's not improving. It hasn't improved. Or they're bouncing around because they're manipulating all the information. And we know what happens to manipulation. Eventually, they can't manipulate anymore, and everything just falls apart. So at this point, we all need to be ready because we see what's happening across the ocean. We see what the U.S. is up to, and it's just a matter of time at this point. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.